So we're kind of into our regular schedule. The next 3 days we'll be outside. Any questions?
Sean, when you have a team with a high sack total like you guys do this year, has it typically matched with defense stopping the run to the same degree you guys are? How much are those?
I think it does. Look, because if an offense has got a run rhythm, you're defending a lot of different elements. If an offense at some point becomes one-dimensional, then you're defending one element. So I do think there's a direct correlation to that, yes.
What was the thinking on there in terms of because his window closed?
Yeah, look, we spent a lot of time just going through it, and we've got a real clear vision for him, bright future, had a real good visit. I know it's difficult. With where we're at in the season, it just became a challenge relative to managing the roster.
I wondered how much it allows you guys as play callers to use your creativity with Marvin and kind of use it in different ways, and how much he's embraced kind of doing different
things. Yeah, look, I told him you're not, you're still meeting with the receivers. He's got some elements, some natural running skills that you see in the return game. And then, look, there's some challenges when he enters the game, for instance, with a tight end and another tight end and two other receivers. You might say 0-2, 3 receivers, 2 tight ends, and we might be, so there's some things that you got to make sure you know what you're trying to do personnel-wise, so you're not surprised. But I think naturally there's some things he does running with the football, and then obviously as a receiver, it's just trying to find ways to highlight the things that he does well.
How do you know, Coach, when your team's ready to handle, whether it's personal accolades or general accolades, how do you know that they're ready to handle that? Is it leadership of their own?
Well, I think it's probably that, and it's probably, we try to have a grounded nature. I mentioned at the start of today's meeting, we went through the game awards, but I said, look, this happens sometimes when, we had a good win, and then you go back and watch the tape and you realize, there's, and so, all right, that was good enough last week, but we're going to play in a game where we have to get those things cleaned up, and so there's no flat line. You're moving forward up or you're moving backward down, and so, but I do think it gets to the leadership and the culture that you're trying to build.
What's Jonah brought to your outside linebacker group as a rookie?
Yeah, he's given us, number one, he's given us good snaps. We felt on the college tape, a lot of times you'll see one move, power, maybe speed. We felt like we saw a few different things. And we saw athleticism. Again, we kind of knew the background, the makeup. He got the first brother game ball, that he'll be able to take a picture of and send to Caden. So, but no, I think it was the football makeup and the versatility, but also the player and the vision for what we saw him doing.
Sean, what do you think are the key elements to a good quarterback and wide receiver relationship?
Well, time on task is one. I think that I don't think it's just like one specific receiver, but I think time on task with the group of receivers, understanding the scheme and where to be, and then the confidence that the quarterback has, not only with Cortland, but he has with Vele or Troy or the tight end. In other words, we're always talking about painting a clean picture for him, and so it's hard sometimes to predict where that ball might go. Now, there's certain designs that's clearly are highlighted for one, but even then, there's things that can happen defensively that, like the touchdown Troutman caught at Carolina on National Tight Ends Day. If you'd have told me, all right, here are your eligibles, like it was a great adjustment. It was a nickel pressure, cloud over the top. The primary was gone, but there wasn't a snap during practice where you can't go through every look. And so sometimes a play designed for Sutton, which that one was, ended up in Trout's hands. So I think it's the group that's very important. And there are some intricacies relative to the X receiver if he's isolated, what the QB and what they're looking for. But I think the group by and large, there's a lot of time on the details of where we want them, man and zone, that kind of thing.
Coach, saying all of that, Cortland Sutton has really exploded, at least statistically, over the last 4 weeks. Is that what you're talking about, the stars kind of just lining for him, or has developed?
Look, it's hard. I don't know when this whole fantasy thing started, but it's obviously it's great for the fans. And I would always get the questions from family members, and I'm like, man, I think the hardest thing is receivers. There's certain maybe knowns. One of the challenges this week is this tight end. And he's second in the league in total receptions amongst anyone, average targets. And so that's going to be important, but the perimeter guys sometimes can be challenging. In New Orleans, there was a lot that had Sutton's name on it in the game ends, and so it wasn't like that was part of the plan. But sometimes that can be dictated by the look.
What are your thoughts on Bo Nix winning AFC Offensive Player of the Week, and then your thoughts just on the consistency he's now bringing you, last month or two?
Yeah, proud of where he's at. He's works tirelessly, and look, the unit, the confidence in his teammates, and all of that stuff is what you hope to see. And look, the best part is, you guys know him now. He's very grounded. He's very team driven relative to what's important, and so we just want to keep building on that. And yeah, that's good with where we're at in the juncture of this season.
Sean, are you pretty much in a situation now where you got to ride the hot hand in the running back room, or how do you
That's the question. That's the $6 million question. It's difficult. In other words, we know kind of what we have with those three players, and it's just, I think it's always hard to feed three. Now I'm used to, and it's easy to feed two, and so we kind of do that a little bit. I thought Javonte had some really good runs. Certainly, the game ends and we're like, gosh, we got to get Jaleel more touches. So it's a tough but a good problem to have.
Sean, you're talking about Bo's work ethic and time he's put in and stuff like that. How has the dialogue between you guys changed during the week from the beginning of the season? You know what I mean? In terms of,
I think the process, and Davis Webb does a great job with him, and of course Joe Lombardi, and Pete, we've got a lot of experience, and so I think the process has been pretty consistent. And I think week by week there'll be certain things. What's really important as the week evolves. Tonight we game plan third down, and there's a play that I want to install. So it's important tomorrow the look, because it's a play we haven't run, and so it's important the look we get tomorrow, maybe 2 times, is conducive to a new play probably for him as well, where come Saturday he's saying this is a green play, I like it, and so that dialogue, that back and forth is important.
So you told us that confidence comes from demonstrated ability. What does a win like you guys had last week do for the confidence of this team going into the final?
Each step, it builds confidence. Each step it builds confidence. We can't allow it to build complacency, though. You know, in other words, like I said, when we went back and looked closely at the game, man, there's still a number of things that we have to clean up. And that can happen sometimes in a loss where you put the tape on and you're like, well, there are a handful of things we did really well. We didn't win, but so you know, it's this constant. It's like the clock's ticking to improve in this race that you're in, and so that's the biggest thing I think for me that I missed when I was not in it, was that constant, like, and then when it's just all quiet, like, that can drive you nuts.
Sean, you touched on Bowers, and I know you told us before y'all played him you liked him. What have you just seen from him to have this success this early?
So, my first exposure, my son was a student assistant at TCU, worked in their scouting department, and so he was attending TCU. This is 2 weeks left in the regular season. I wasn't coaching at the time, and there was a trip where I was speaking to the Touchdown Club in Atlanta, and then at the University of Georgia. Now, why would I be doing that? Well, I was going to get to play Augusta the next day. So, all right. So, but I had a chance to go out and watch a practice, and they had two tight ends at that time. Bowers was the underclassman, and then the Steelers drafted. So I had a chance to watch someone else's practice. It's been a while. I mean, I can't think of the last time I was able to do that. And it was impressive, the way they ran things, Kirby and those guys. I mean, it was on point. But in that practice, I'm like, who was this? You know, he caught like 8 balls. Well, the irony of all of that is somehow or another, Georgia ended up playing TCU in the national championship game. And so I think if Kirby knew, if he knew then or prior, I don't know that I would have been as welcome. I wasn't paying attention to any scheme, but and then that game was a tough one, obviously, for TCU. But I would say, look, think about this for a second. He's from Napa, California. He wasn't on a really good team. Someone had a real good vision for him, and you see all the Joker traits are change of direction, receiving. You know, it can't be a little. It's a high end receiving trait, and he can move. He can be outside. He can run a route tree maybe different than most tight ends. He certainly goes up and makes the first touchdown catch against us. And so when it's happening week in and week out, we see that with the player at Detroit. We're seeing it obviously with Kelsey. We see it with Kittle. Man, that's a weapon, and it becomes a little bit more challenging when they're at that position than when they're outside at receiver. And so that's important in this game.
Sean, it wasn't very long after the draft that you were willing to say that you thought that this rookie class would be special or impactful.
I thought it had a chance to be, yeah.
Yeah.
We'll look back on it.
Yeah, what gave you that confidence? I mean, a bunch of them are contributing at the hour.
I think it wasn't just, like with each player, let's get past Bo, then the next pick, we had a higher grade on and then with the next pick, and then with each player, when we drafted them, we probably had a grade 2 rounds earlier. That doesn't happen often. And then I think most importantly was the vision for each guy. How do we see this guy fitting in year one? We did a lot of work on it, and we still, listen, 3 years from now, we'll know for sure like where this draft panned out. We did know that it would be measured certainly with the first selection, and I understand that. But we felt real good about those other selections as well.
When you find yourself in a situation where you have a grade maybe that's higher Is there any part of you that wonders, are we the ones missing something, or do you have
No,
to, like,
no.
okay, maybe we found something?
You know, you pay attention to that train I always talk about, but you don't get on it. If you get on it, then you find yourself, you pay attention to it, but you have to have conviction. It's one of the bigger challenges now, than when I first entered the league, you can't even avoid, for the scouts and the coaches, just now most of it's first and second round driven, but trust what you're seeing. Alvin Kamara's story, and I don't know where our initial grades were, but I recall going to an individual workout, and there were 7 or 8 Tennessee prospects. We had all our coaches there. Our running back coach wasn't there, but I'd coached running backs, and so he wasn't planning on working out. I convinced him, and I said, look, and we spent a half an hour, and man, I remember coming back and just feeling the football IQ, and so you have to have conviction for it, and so, the good scout really will tell you who he loves, and then you got to pay attention to that, and then, or who he doesn't and why. You got to pay attention to that. But I think hearing the vision, and then how you see the fit for your team, I think all of that goes into it.